Welcome to 247 Real Talk. I'm your host, Julian Perry, here with you once again for another week of our podcast episode. Hope you had a great week, great Thanksgiving week. The last episode you would have heard from me was a gratitude episode, but it was the day after Thanksgiving. And now we're done with all that food, that turkey, that chicken, and all the wonderful dishes that I hope you enjoyed, but didn't eat too much of. And we're on to the Christmas holiday season. And as I prepared the different topics as I do, ahead of time, I kind of ran into a few people who accosted me and chastised me a bit because they said that now that they've started repaying student loans, that after being such an advocate for that for so long, that they hadn't heard me say anything more about it or bring their cause to the forefront, like I forgot about them. But I haven't. So I'm going to spend a little time on this episode telling you what they told me and what their experience has been since they restarted their student loans. Some of it is quite puzzling and some of it is quite disturbing. So sit back, relax, and I'll be right back with you. So, once again, welcome back to 247 Real Talk Podcast. Again, it's always my pleasure, and I'm grateful to be here. I had a lot to give thanks for this past Thanksgiving, and I made sure that I did. And I have a lot to look forward to as we give thanks for the upcoming year and the wonderful things we have to look forward to as life continues to evolve and move forward, and as I personally, and for those who follow the same belief and spirituality, look forward to thanking the Almighty God for all the wonderful things He's done for us and will do for us as we go ahead. So let's get into a quick episode. It won't be too long on this episode, but let's get into the meat of what's going on here. So, as you know, or as you should know, I think it was October was the starting point. This past October was the end of the moratorium. Various Republican groups took President Biden's policies to the Supreme Court. They knocked it down, saying that he didn't have the right to, without Congress, to enact student loan forgiveness, at least not in the method that he chose. Keep in mind that he wasn't trying to do 100% forgiveness. He was trying to do a scenario where certain people get $10,000 forgiveness and some people get $20,000 forgiveness. Now, in the meantime, there were a lot of other programs that went through that did, and I think he was very smart in what he did. And you've heard me criticize him in a lot of ways before about certain things he did, but as I looked deeper into things that went on in that 2-month period last year, I think it was October to December or something last year, where there was an open period for people to apply for student loan forgiveness, public service student loan forgiveness. I think there were millions of dollars of student loans that were forgiven. But as we look to the people who are telling me, they have started receiving the bills and if some of them have made their first payments. And as I read what the media is saying, I wonder whose agenda is the media supporting and why. The articles I've read so far in the media say, hey, this has not been as much of an impact as we thought it would have been, and people seem to have adjusted, and during the pandemic, some people continue to pay, and they've paid off their student loans, and now it's no big deal. And while that may be true, it is true for a very small, almost insignificant number of people. People who had ten and $20,000 in student loans, and only some of them. You have a lot of people who have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, who still can't get a job that will allow them to pay back what the monthly is on their student loans. But there's so many elephants in this room that no one is talking about, right? And we must continue to push that. And for those of you who felt that I was negligent in keeping this in the forefront, I apologize. It's always been in my mind. I've got one of my greatest, probably my greatest supporter of this podcast, and he makes fun of me because he knows that every opportunity I get, I work in student loans into the conversation, and the fact that people came to me and said, "Hey, we haven't heard you talk about this for a while. This is what we're going through," startled me a bit because I've been such an advocate for it. But what people said were a few things. One, many people lost a breadwinner during COVID. Some at the beginning of COVID, some near the end of COVID. When they lost their breadwinner, their rent didn't change, their light bill didn't change, their gas bill didn't change, their food bill didn't change. All the necessities and the cost of that didn't change. Some people may have been working, so it was a two-income household. Some people may have then had to go out and look for a job because it was a single-income household where the other parent was taking care of the kids. Now when you go out and you have to work, many people can't get or don't get the same income that the breadwinner was receiving. On top of that, they have the added expense of looking for childcare. And when you look at this income-driven repayment plan, which everybody is saying is atrocious, and I mentioned this before in previous episodes, it does not take into consideration each individual when you apply for it, your actual bills, your cost of living, a fundamental bill, which I think it must. We don't live in a country there's empty houses all over the place, and people can walk around and pick and choose where they live and how much rent they pay. I am living in New York, so I'm going to use New York as a template. There's a housing crisis in New York. The average rent for an apartment in Manhattan, now don't get me wrong, most people don't live in Manhattan, but the average rent for an apartment in Manhattan, I think they said or the mean rent was $4,200 a month. There are many people whose salary to get to $4,200 is 3 months or 4 months worth of salary. So now you have a single parent who might never not been working, lost their breadwinner, has to pay child care, has to buy all the kids' clothes and shoes and food and everything on their own, living in an apartment where they have to pay rent, maybe they had to move. But the point is, when you're going to do an income-driven repayment plan, forget about what they filed in taxes. It doesn't matter how much I filed in taxes, because many people don't have options as to where to go and live. So if I'm paying $1,000 in rent, hypothetically, and that's lowballing it, right? I saw an advertisement in I think it was somewhere in Far Rockaway, Queens, New York, for a one-bedroom apartment. I think it was last week. I came across my phone, and the person was asking, I think, $2,100 for a one-bedroom apartment. So let's say a mother with 3 kids decides to go live in a one-bedroom apartment, $2,100. She's working, the breadwinner died, and she's earning, let's say $4,000 a month. Let's even say after taxes. $2,100 means she's left with $1,900 a month after taxes. She has to pay gas. She has to pay electricity. She has to pay transportation. She has to pay for food. She has to pay for the kids' transportation. She has to pay for the kids' clothes. She has to pay for certain activities for the kids and the kids' transportation. Have you seen what groceries cost recently? For those of you in my audience who live in New York, you can attest to this. I go to Costco to buy in bulk, and it's no longer bulk. I go to Costco if there's 6 items, 6 small items. When I say bulk, let's say I buy a big coffee and a double pack of loaves of bread and a $5 pack of snack apples and a couple of other things. And I go to the register, it's almost $100, and there's nothing in there. There's no meat. There's no nothing. So if when you're buying for a family, these days, it's like it's $400 or $500 for the month, easy, and that's lowballing it. I have a family, a household of 5 people here. It's $700-800 in groceries a month. Kids at a certain age eat, and they're supposed to be able to eat. Those are their nurturing years. We want them to study. We want them to grow. We want them to excel. We have to feed them. And so this income-driven repayment plan, as I said, I've beat it up over and over again, and I'm hoping that as my audience grows, that someone with influence will hear it. It's just by chance even will hear it and understand the logic of this. It doesn't matter what you pay in rent or what I pay in rent. Just like how the income-driven repayment plan asks you for your taxes in the previous year, it should ask you for proof of what you pay in rent. It should ask you for the last, 3 months of electricity bills, last 3 months of gas bills. Okay? Sure, it doesn't have to ask you about your grocery bills, but at least the fundamental things. And take them into consideration because those are constants. The numbers may vary a little bit, but those are fundamental, critical, mandatory things that we need to live. We're in winter right now. We need heat. If you live in an apartment building, you might not be paying for the heat, but you're still paying for electricity. You might not be paying for gas. So take what bills I have. And then look at the size of the family and do an average. If how many people in your family? 5? Okay, this is the allowance we're giving you for food that we'll consider as part of our consideration overall of your expenses before we determine how much we're going to charge you as a repayment for a month for your student loans. Because I'm telling you this because several people have shown me they've gone through the income-driven repayment plan, and what the monies that they've come out with in order to be able to afford. I remember a specific scenario. The person has $71,000 in student loans that they want to pay back in 10 years. In order to be able to afford to pay it off, in order to get it down to $345 a month, using the income-driven plan, they had to agree to pay it off over 30 years, making that $71,000 loan $161,000 or $165,000, something like that, when they pay it off. How is that helping? How is the federal government helping you with federal student loans? They are basically more than doubling your debt, and they can't even guarantee you a job, and a job that's worth the effort that you made to go to school. How can you and I as mentors convince young people of today to go get an education? I've had this conversation with young people, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I don't want any student loans. Imagine that. It's one thing to say, look, you buy a house for $400,000 a year for $400,000, I'm sorry. When you're done paying for it over 30 years, you would have paid $700 and something thousand. That's a choice of a dwelling you're buying. Education is a fundamental part of life. Some sort of education, whether it's a trade, whatever it is. Even entrepreneurs learn something. If people who have never been to school go through some other sort of methodology of learning, right? But generally speaking, we have a society that pushes college and furthering your education only to riddle you with debt. Now, if you have someone that had $71,000 and to pay the 300 something dollars a month, which is what their budget can afford, they're stuck with 30 years of loans and 160 something thousand dollars. What do you say to someone who has $400,000 in student loans? And I know of such a person who has 400, and I forgot what the numbers, 400 plus $1,000 in student loans, graduated, and the job that they got after an extensive search only pays them 80 something thousand dollars a year. How did they do this? Your life is stolen from you. How is the federal government helping you? We live in the richest country in the world. I've often said that you look around the world, everybody is migrating to the United States in one way or another, or at least a large volume. Not everyone, but a large volume. If islands in the Caribbean have a commitment to their citizens, their nationals, people born in their countries, that they give them free education all the way to their bachelor's and in some cases their master's. What is wrong with the United States of America? Over the last 2 or 3 years, we've given money in the trillions to Ukraine. I'm sure we're doing, I know we are, we're doing money packages to with the war in Israel right now, Israel, Hamas, the whole conflict. I'm not saying we don't help these people, but charity begins at home. Why is it okay for Congress to meet and give trillions of dollars to foreign countries, to people that don't live in the United States of America, but then on the same hand, go to the Supreme Court to stop aid to Americans? I don't get this country we live in. I don't get the thought process. I don't get the need for people to have such superiority over their own citizens that they feel it is okay to give aid across the world while they suppress and oppress their own people. People who are already dealing with bigger issues like systemic racism, where just to go out and get a job to pay your regular bills is a challenge because of the color of your skin, or your gender, or the choice you make for your sexual orientation. You're discriminated against. Or you're given less pay because you're a woman. You're given less chance at a higher paying job because you're a person of color. Your education doesn't matter, but you have to pay for it. You're more qualified than the other candidate, but you won't get the job because you're a person of color, but you're going to pay that student loan. You don't live in Ukraine, you're not going to get any of these trillions of dollars of aid, but you're going to pay that student loan. And then on top of that, we'll make it so you can, we'll give you a path to make it affordable. But while you're doing that, we're gonna make 100% of interest off of you, or 110% of interest off of you. By the way, it's great to be an American citizen, isn't it? This is what our own politicians that we put in office do to us. I keep preaching this over and over again. We can't get it into our heads that we have the power as people if we can only unite and understand the basic concept of those in Washington are there by the people, for the people. They are so much smarter than we are in terms of day-to-day life because they manage to always divide us. They use two main political parties, Democrat and Republicans, and separate us. They make sure that we cannot be united as Americans to demand the best from them and demand that they treat us as American citizens and put us first. If you could send trillions of dollars to Ukraine, you could forgive student loans here. I don't care who paid their student loans already. There can be programs, or there can be, like I said, if you paid your student loans before, and they decide to do a forgiveness program, maybe we can talk about some period of time of tax breaks for those who did to try and level the playing field. But don't tell me because you did something in the past, it can't get better in the future. Now, that's garbage. Don't tell me all these Republicans walking around saying, oh, well, you know what? I paid my student loans, so do you. That's tantamount to saying, well, I did this in the past, so we can't change anything in the future. It must stay the same. All circumstances are different. We had a 100-year event in a pandemic. The world has changed. We're talking about trying to make a better country and a better people. And somehow we feel okay to be in Washington elected by Americans only to give your best to someone who is not American, to someone who does not live in the United States of America. When someone migrates here, even a migrant, and they go through the path, the correct path, the legal path, and they become a resident, they become a citizen, they are an American. They deserve the same benefits once they have come through the correct path. I think we'd all agree on that. And so whether you come through that path or you were born here, they at that point have the right to vote. They vote the people in Washington into office only to have those we elect turn their backs on us. It is mind-boggling to understand that people took so much time to go to the Supreme Court to stop Biden giving $10,000 or $20,000 loan forgiveness. Yet they can sit in Congress and vote for trillions of dollars of aid packages to other countries. And then on top of that, several of those lawmakers had PPP loans during COVID and had several $millions of PPP loans forgiven. How much more hypocritical than that can you get? When are American citizens going to say, enough is enough? When are we going to be tired enough? When are we going to be hurt enough? When are we going to look around and see all the injustices that are going on? Doesn't matter the color of your skin. If you're a person of color, you've got a set of injustices. If you are Caucasian, believe me, you've got a set of injustices too, because while it differs from the set of injustices of a person of color, Washington still doesn't care about you. There's an elite set of people that live in this country who make sure that they sit above the rest of us and look down and snuff their noses at us. And they make sure that they create and maintain that class division. They make sure that they do everything they can to keep thinning out the middle class. So there's poverty and then them, high class. We sit around and watch Congress take our tax money and give it away to other countries. And they can't forgive our student loans. They can't make energy cheaper for us so that gas bills and electricity bills go down. They can't do better so that food bills go down. They can't do better so the American people can live a better life. They are willing to say, okay, you know what? You owe me $71,000 in student loans. Pay me back $71,000 as a government. I'm not going to charge you interest. Can you at least do that? Can you say, look, you took out $71,000. This is federal money. I'm not going to charge you interest. Okay? I'm gonna extend it to a maximum of whatever. You have to pay me back the entire $71,000. I still don't agree with that, but at least that's a start. But no, you're charging these people interest to the point that they're paying more than double what they paid off just to get to an amount that they can manage to live. And they're still struggling. And every day you sit on your thrones in the aristocracy that is Washington and pontificate about how great you are and how great America is. Every time I do a podcast episode, I call upon you, my audience, to like, subscribe, and share. I do this for multiple reasons. I do this because I want to get this large enough so that more people can join the conversation. I want to be able to start to fund efforts to make a real difference. We have to start changing more minds. The minute people recognize their power as numbers in a peaceful but united way, Washington will have to take notice. But as long as we allow Washington to keep us divided over stupid things, then they will have the power. Many people vote Republican. Many people vote Democrat. And most of them can't tell you most of the policies of either party. They align with a few things and decide that they have to live the entire ideology. And they're willing to turn their backs to all the criminal and all the disgusting and immoral activities of both sides of the aisle. When are we going to decide that our children deserve better? Our children's children deserve better? When are we going to decide that it's our responsibility, no matter how young or old we are, to start now to make a difference? Tomorrow is not promised. Many people who were here yesterday are not here today. I'm pleading with you to join me in numbers. I will take the lead. Join the conversation. I will take the lead. And we will do this. Because I'm not stopping. I hope you're joining me because together we have the power. Thank you so much again. It is always a pleasure to speak with you. This here is a mission, as I always tell you. This here is a life's work because I honestly believe that giving back and striving to make a difference and to be a blessing to any and every life I can is the price I should pay to occupy a space on this place we call Earth. It is always a pleasure, and I'm always humbled to be able to have conversations with you. Do have a great week ahead. Enjoy the holiday season as it's getting to a start, and make sure that you stay safe, that you take care of yourself, and please take care of each other.